All right, welcome everyone to today's meeting. This is meeting one of Core Devs meeting number 39. Today is Thursday, March 24th, 2022. And with that, we will get started. As I mentioned to everyone who joined the call before we started this recording, we do have a relatively light schedule today. So as usual, we'll go through updates from each of the four implementation teams. We'll get a brief update on network governance and security and an update on FIP 27 from Jennifer. And then only one discussion topic today. Just wanted to give everyone a heads up that I'm going to begin moving to codify some definitions around key roles in the FIPS process, including core devs. So wanted to make sure everyone has a chance to weigh in on that as well. So to kick us off, does someone from the Forest team want to walk us through your updates for the last 2 weeks? If not, it looks like Leah's joining. So why don't we start with you, Maxim? Can you give us Fuhan's updates or anything you want to share?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Caitlin. So the main thing I wanted to point out is that we've been able to sync interop network, Caterpillar net, using FVM. The node of Fuhon node is able to get in sync and stay sync. So that's some good news, but as I mentioned on the previous meetings, it is somewhat easier for us than for other implementations because this is a natural approach for us because we have used CGO bridge for using actors, and now we have just switched to FFI. It was not that challenging. The real challenge will start with milestone 2, so we'll look forward to that. Also, I wanted to mention that the full Fuhon node plus Fuhon miner is still in sync with the mainnet. It's working stable. It is stable, working, has sealed sectors and mining power. So I'm not sure we have mined at least one sector yet. With 3 sectors, it's really low probability to do so, but I will check. Otherwise, we are working on the scope for the future work and mostly focused on that, plus fixing ongoing issues with support the current implementation of node and miner.
Great. Thank you, Max. Any questions for the Fuhan team? All right. Lotus team.
Hi, sorry I didn't add notes. Basically, Lotus team is just like working on FVM. Obviously, we have node syncing network running FVM and building actor V8 Alpha 1 already. Right now, we have been doing a lot of internal auditing on both FVM and actor itself. And we also shipped Lotus V151 RC1, which including the FVM canary, like the tag. We have the indexer provider in Lotus now. We have the resource manager merged in Lotus as well. What else do we have? We had a lot of Snapdeal improvement. Basically, storage provider now can easily configure a Snapdeal queue instead of like constantly upgrading Snapdeal sector individually. So that was super cool. We also have GraphSync 2.0 integrated in Lotus. Ongoing, keep working on FVM. That's the goal. But that's all. We probably should give an update later on, but we finished the analysis, FIP 27 prototyping and analysis. We can go deeper into that later on.
Is that all? Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That's great. I can actually just take what you've just said and copy it over into the slides for this second meeting this afternoon. But that's great. Does anyone have questions for the Lotus team? All right. So moving down the list, the Venus team will be in meeting 2 this afternoon. But from their end, they have mostly confirmed that they are also syncing with the FVM. They're also continuing to work on Venus Cluster, which is again that module for helping storage providers who are running multiple nodes. And they have continued to work to add support for shared computing resources and Snapdeals as discussed last week. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. but anything top of mind related to the Venus work that you'd like to discuss with the group? All right, then it's over to the Forest team.
Cool. Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Well, on our side, we are able to sync the mainnet with V15 using the FVM. It's still a little bit work in progress, but that's on our next sprint cycle. We also reported a bug in the FVM encoded library. And right now we are working on making Forest more nimble by removing the duplicate code that was moved into FVM and the built-in actors, and joining the efforts of maintaining the actors together with the Filecoin stakeholders. Yeah, that's mostly on our end. Happy to answer any questions or anything anybody has. Yeah.
Nice. Sounds like there are no questions. Given all of the work that your team has been doing, Lee, to help prepare for the FVM launch, the M1 goal, do you have any outstanding needs for any other teams that we can help coordinate over the next couple of days, or is everything where it's supposed to be?
Sorry, what do you mean coordinate with the other teams?
Oh, in terms of the FVM team, or I know you're collaborating quite closely with Lotus. Do you have any outstanding sort of like work dependencies or asks that we can help move along that have been stuck, or are you good to go?
Yeah, not at this point. Maybe David, if you have something.
And not at this point. Like, we would love to coordinate more like long term on like shared testing of the infrastructure that we have in common. But we have no blockers right now.
Great. Yeah, I think there's a larger conversation too around shared test resources as well as like shared audit resources. And Lee and I are also working together to begin meeting regularly to discuss like TPM best practices, which includes that kind of standardization. So we can continue to kind of talk about these things, but I think if that's it. Any other questions, needs, or concerns for any of the implementation teams? All right, let's go on then to updates from the Filecoin Foundation. Dudley was not able to join today, but has no updates, which from him is always a good thing. There have been, oh, here comes Dudley now, so maybe he can change this for us. On the FIP side, things are pretty consistent with what we had last week. So there are a lot of FIP drafts that are currently either merged into the repo for final work or exist as PRs. We also had a new FIP come forward this morning that I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but do pay attention to the weekly governance updates if you'd like more information about what's being proposed. For the most part, we are still just continuing to focus on finalizing all three of those FVM FIPs. FIP 30 and 31 are, FIP 30 is good to go, FIP 31 is nearly complete, and we're just waiting for final testing for FIP 32 to put those into last call status for final confirmation, but we should be able to do that and receive final approval prior to the CalibNet sync that we're working towards next month. Dudley, I know you just joined us. Any security updates?
So specifically, we've been working a lot on this FVM actors audit thing, and it's changing quite frequently. And I just want to say a message for maybe this will be useful to some people here. Is like, auditors care about scopes. If you continuously change scope, or if you don't have a scope, they'll be less willing to even sign to do the audit because they won't know which engineers to assign at the right time. You know, like, do we assign our Rust expert? Do we assign our Go expert? Something more complicated than that. And typically orders are booked so far in advance that it's really difficult to switch these around quickly. So I know it's tough, and I really appreciate, in particular, ChainSafe for outlining like a really good audit preparedness thing. But as much detail as I can get is going to make it the best results we can get on this particular audit. And that's, I'll give a few more updates on that. So there will be a like some posts across various bug bounty platforms about the FVM, and like a real initiative to get people involved. As everyone here is probably already familiar with Raul discussing this, like anyone who's interested once the FVM comes out to mess around with it, please do. Maybe phrased in a little more secure way than that, but we're looking for a lot of involvement in it, a lot of regular bugs as well as security bugs. And there's going to be, I think we're aiming at 4 auditors. So there's a lot of effort and a lot of money behind this. So hoping to get the best bang for our buck here and not just, get an auditor to say we had an auditor, but really have people who care about this. Right, that's all.
Thank you, Dudley. Any questions for Dudley? All right. Then we will continue to move through the agenda. Jennifer, did you want to talk through some of the final updates that have been made for FIP 27?
Hey, I teleported into Jennifer's universe. Yes, I can talk through, I would like to give an update about that if possible. I think it's in last call status, you can speak to that. But basically, kind of catching up from 2 weeks ago, or telling the story of FIP 27. This FIP was opened halfway through last year in response to a long-standing issue in spec factors, which is that the label field of deal proposals is a string and not bytes, and specifically a Golang string, which is not enforced by UTF-8. We wanted to just change it to bytes, then ran into integration issues because that essentially breaks tooling as the encoding for deal changes. So back in its new form, because we do want this change to land, especially once Rust factors become fully canonical. And so the proposal has changed to use a union type that can either be string or bytes, but is encoded kind of agnostic to the existence of the type itself. So if it's a string, we will now start enforcing that it's UTF-8 and get the security guarantees and safety guarantees around that. And if it's bytes, you can do whatever you want. It's a byte string. This proposal has now been PR'd into the FIP. So the change of so FIP 27 has kind of changed slightly. Indeed, we should probably change the title of the FIP. I can do that. We've prototyped it in both Go and Rust, and kind of looked at what the integration would be like in Lotus and the markets repos, and it looks doable. We haven't tested it very thoroughly yet. That's kind of our next step. But yeah, that's the current status of the FIP. It should be very easy to integrate because the only reason you would have difficulty integrating it is if you were already intentionally using non-UTF-8 strings in your client for some reason, which based on a current scrape of the chain, no one is doing. I don't believe any of the implementations here are doing. So yeah, it should be a relatively painless FIP to integrate. And would very much like to get it into V16 so that when Rust actors becomes canonical, we don't have any unsafe Rust or any non-UTF-8 strings. That's the status of it.
We also reach out to a couple very close ecosystem team that is working on the market to confirm with them if this change is gonna impact their tooling or applications. All of them coming back to us saying this is fine, this makes sense. It seems like the proposal makes sense to them as well. The impact is slow, as I said. There's nothing like that on chat right now, which also confirms that. So the ecosystem impact basically is also analysis in the past 2 weeks.
Wonderful. Some additional details. We also sort of steward this through the builders funnel, and it was presented at the last few builders calls, just to make sure that there was no tooling additionally that we were unaware of that would be impacted by the change, and no one raised any issues. We also got general positive support for the change. People understood why it was needed. Nothing negative or confusing that was raised. So that's great. It's not in last call status yet because the hope is that we can move 27, 30, 31, and 32 through last call all together. So we can bundle these 4 FIPs and say all 4 of these are needed to support the switch to the non-programmable FVM. So right now, the only thing we're waiting on are final parameters for the gas adjustments that are coming in FIP 32. Still waiting for Raul on an update on when we may have those. I know it's sort of dependent on test capacities, but we'll keep everyone posted. And again, no matter what, the goal is to try and get these through their last call status well before the CalibNet sync, so that there should be no issues when it comes to testing and implementation as we get closer to the actual V16 upgrade.
I just have a quick question. Is it necessary to couple all the FIPs that we consider for network upgrade into for last call status? Because I do feel FIP 32 will take some more time before we can figure it out. So like in the same time, should we consider like moving the ready-ish like FIP to the last call and then, you know, organize the upgrades accordingly?
Yeah, we can. So the reason we've talked previously about sort of bundling them is because they were intentionally written to, well, not 27, but the 30 through 32 were written sort of as a group. And I think Raul specifically has done like a lot of communication around thinking of them as 3 component pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah, so to say we're doing 27, 30, 31, and then maybe having 32 join later, we just don't want there to be, yeah.
I think like bundle like 30, 31, 32 actually makes sense because basically that's the one big FEM piece. I do feel like
Sure.
27 should be decoupled because it's like you know, unrelated to the rest of 3, but like up to you, obviously. Either is fine.
Oh, sure, that's fine. We've also been sort of explaining the change or the sudden interest in this one in relation to the FVM, but it's fine to decouple them. So if you'd like, I can do a final pass through and we can start like last call tomorrow. All right. Then that's the plan. Great. Any questions, comments, or ideas about FIP 27 or anything else we discussed? All right. Then next, just a reminder of the current details for network V16, which is officially named Skyr or Skyr, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I also added these details to the thread that we have going in the TPM post. So other than the slides, if you want to reconfirm anything, you can find it there. No changes, there's nothing new to flag. Just wanted to reiterate that these are the current dates, linked to the test plan, and then again, reiterating the FIPS that we were hoping to implement this upgrade cycle. Questions or concerns?
I did already posted a, you know, in our community forum about the network upgrade. I already posted about like network V60. They're having the subjective like timeline. I made a huge call out that the timeline is subject to change because a lot of the scope change, security audit, you know, bug reports and all those things. So again, this timeline is our current aim so far, but like, you know, based on how the gas parameters goes, how the testing goes, it may be delayed for some time. Just want to make that very clear. And also community post is up there. If other implementations wants to add links to your release schedule, do you know, reach out to Katie or me, we can help with that. But yeah.
Good caveat. Thank you, Jennifer. I think people in general tend to like when deadlines get pushed out. So as long as we're not going to pull them in all of a sudden, I think we should be okay. All right. And then next, sorry, there's a lot of text on the screen actually, but just wanted to flag, as mentioned at the beginning of this call, that I'm going to be pushing out a new piece of documentation for everyone to consider, sort of solidifying some of the roles that are outlined as pretty significant pieces of the FIPS process. For core devs, this isn't going to mean any real change other than to just codify who is considered a core dev. And it's also to outline specifically that in these meetings, you know, all of you as core dev contributors have the opportunity to provide feedback and potentially kind of strike down FIPS if you deem them to not really be a significant priority or technically feasible. That's not a change at all. It's really just to make sure it's as abundantly clear as possible to the community. Where there may be a change as actually mostly unrelated to this group, but it's in understanding who a FIP editor is and codifying their responsibilities more formally as well, so that we can begin to sort of move things along much more quickly and then also begin to benchmark expectations and standards for review. Also thinking about the process for becoming a FIP editor, so that again, this is also an open and collaborative process for the community. Whereas in the past, as the network was smaller and governance had fewer participants, it was something that was just sort of defined, but not very frequently audited. So again, going to push like a longer breakdown of these things as a proposal for all of you to consider if you want to provide feedback. But did want to bring this up here in case anybody had any ideas, questions, concerns, suggestions for the group, or that you'd like me to take into consideration when writing up that initial proposal.
Well, I don't want to once again ask your favorite question, which is what should be a FIP, but right now the what is a FIP editor section feels like it leans a little in the technical towards technical FIPs. I don't know whether kind of contentious community decisions should be FIPs, but if they are, then we probably need to include more than just technical reviewers, I guess. I don't know.
I think what we're leaning towards right now, and something that I've been thinking a lot about, is how we differentiate FIPs while also introducing a standard for like FRCs, like Filecoin requests for comments once the FVM goes live. That distinction may or may not help clarify sort of the technical versus non-technical sort of changes, or like where we necessarily need harder consensus in terms of initial review and feedback. But your question is a good one. And noted. Any other comments, ideas, or suggestions? All right. Again, I think this is really more of a procedural thing, and for folks on here who are only core devs and are not named FIP editors currently, there should be zero material change in this meeting or your role. But again, just wanted to make it known that we're working on this. I think it's important to have this written down and confirmed. So in the meeting notes for this meeting, I'll actually add a link to the published draft if you want to find that as well. It's not up yet. So and with that, as promised, relatively short meeting today compared to the last few that we've had. Anybody have any other items they'd like to bring to the group?
Sorry, I definitely joined late, and I think David, potentially you were saying something about kind of integrating the FVM and working closer in terms of, I don't know, whether development or testing or auditing and so on. I was interested in that, but I don't know, but I missed what you were saying, sorry.
So I feel there's a great opportunity for adding more testing infrastructure for all the projects that we have in common. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of opportunity for adding more testing for the actors, and a lot of work have been done there already, but like a lot of it is still kind of missing, still not in a good shape.
Yes,
and it's something that we all benefit from.
Yeah, totally. Thank you very much for bringing this up, and you know, for interest and collaboration on it. This is something we totally need more of. What would help? Like, what would? Because right now, I feel like a lot of the work on the built-in actors repo and the FVM as well is still kind of happening from a small group of people that are, you know, talking to each other all the time. What would help? So we do have a tested an effort to like test the built-in actors. A bunch of folks are writing tests. Would you like to be introduced or incorporated into some of those plans, or what do you think? What do you think is currently blocking kind of closer collaboration on stuff like that?
Yes, I would love to be more involved in that. Like specifically, I would love to expand the way that we use test vectors. Mm-hmm. But as it is right now, we only have test vectors for network 14 actors, and all the other actors are not really tested.
It's true, yeah. We are working on. I think we have some V15 vectors now, but yes, I think you're right. So maybe a good next step for this is so the FVM folks working on or around the FVM and the actors have a daily meeting at actually this time. Would you be interested in joining? So you or anyone else on your team be interested in joining those meetings, or obviously anytime you want to. I think if you can join one of them, I think that'd be a good place to, it's very open-ended discussions. So I think that would be a good place to float more ideas and collaborate and cooperate a bit more on kind of the immediate efforts, right? And we can also kind of share the current testing efforts. It is all public, but we can kind of take you over the current efforts, because there are like entire actors that we plan to start writing a bunch of tests for that haven't started on yet. So there's a lot of easy, Jennifer's dropped a bunch of links in chat, but we can kind of walk you through some of that stuff and would very much like help with it. So I think that's great.
That sounds great.
Cool.
I would love that.
You want to DM me and DM your email address? I will send an invite to you. Perfect.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll also just like I make a bunch of things in the Zoom chat. Basically, those are the we track things in GitHub tickets, obviously, and so we kind of have like project boards just to for people to know like what's like the TDs. Feel free to grab anything you want to work on, and anyone if you want to join the VM huddle, let us know. We would love as much as help as possible.
And Jennifer, I've copied your links. We can add them to the notes, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I have one more thing. So Sigma Prime just completed a security assessment of Forest. But most of the code that they reviewed have been moved out of Forest and either into the built-in actors or into FVM or into like some of the supporting libraries.
Are you referring to the audit that was done last year that's getting finalized now?
I think so. So I see that a report was finalized like yesterday.
Yeah, so that's I'll take the blame for that one. That audit was essentially like we consider that like a last year's audit. There's a lot, as you said, is out of date. We just wanted to get it out so we can at least publish it and put the stamp on it. As far as I understand, and also make sure that Sigma Prime were happy with the fixes there. Yeah, sorry for the intro.
Yeah, but so we can like look at all those issues and then like track down like where the code went and then create the issues at those projects.
I think were the issues not remediated?
I don't think so. Not all of them.
Yeah, so I think some of them were designated as won't fixes. Lee, do you have more context on this? I know that you're speaking directly with Mehdi.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Lee? I missed you there.
So of the audit of Forest from last year that Sigma Prime did, I recall that there were some won't fixes, but I think the audit was finalized and it was like, was it not finalized that things were fixed?
Yeah, so I understand your question. Yeah, so some of the fixes that I think like that required fixing, I think that's what David was saying. They have moved to the built-in actors repo or the FVM repo, so it kind of doesn't, those fixes specifically for the Forest repo doesn't make sense. So we have to kind of look at it, those repositories for those fixes, if that makes sense.
How many pertinent ones are remaining approximately?
I think it was just 1 or 2 of them. I think, yeah, for
okay.
6 or the 3, yeah.
All right, thanks. Sorry for interrupting again there, David.
Yeah, but that's it. That's all I have.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to all of you. Still an open forum if anyone has any other questions, needs, or asks that they'd like to bring up. All right. Then it seems like this is the end of this meeting for this week. If anything comes up in the meantime, again, you're welcome to join the meeting that's taking place at 4 p.m. Pacific time. It's midnight Universal Standard Time. Or if you're going to be in bed, you can also message me your question or issue and we can add it to the second meeting and get some consensus to share back with you. Otherwise, thanks again, everyone, for participating, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.